Morning peeps, good morning everyone, how's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe. I feel like we're getting updates now about the Canelo situation as the days go on. I think there's a few things that we can take away from Ariel Helwani's sit-down interviews with Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya. And the obvious thing is that Canelo won't be having his next fight on PBC. I think that's fairly obvious. Nothing's been officially announced, but I think it's obvious that his next fight won't be with PBC, which is a big blow, I think, to PBC and obviously this new deal with Amazon. If you're Al Heyman or whoever pitched the deal to Amazon, you would have said, look, we've got Gervonta Davis, we've got Canelo, we've got Errol Spence, we've got Terence Crawford. We'll talk about that one as well. But the cherry on top would have been Canelo, right? He's the biggest star in boxing. So it is a big blow to them. It doesn't mean that door is shut forever. I think we've seen that Canelo will go to wherever the fights can be made. I say that because, again, I would have wanted to see the Benavidez fight, and that's a fight that I'm sure was put to him. But yeah, for now, it looks like his next fight will be with DAZN, right? Whether it's a link up with Matchroom or him just doing it by himself, Canelo Alvarez Promotions, whatever, right? His next fight will be on DAZN. So that means no Jamal Charlo. It means no David Benavidez. It means no Terence Crawford, maybe. Again, we'll talk about that. And what it does mean, if it is going to be with DAZN, it really only leaves, I think, two options for May. That there'll always be someone else that can be floated, right? As he did when he fought, I don't know, a Rocky Fielding type. There'll always be someone that can be just thrown to the wolves, if you like. But I think the two obvious candidates are Edgar Berlanga and Munguia, who fought a few weeks ago against John Ryder. I said my views on Edgar Berlanga in yesterday's video. I don't need to get into them again. I don't think he's ready for Canelo. Do I think he'll put up a good showing? He'll try his hardest, right? He's young, he's big, he's strong. He'll try his hardest, but young, big and strong isn't good enough to get the job done against Canelo. Plus, we need to see a bit more, I think, from him. Munguia is the obvious one. It's the obvious one. And again, look, I would love to see Benavidez. I'd love to see David Morrell. I still would like to see Terence Crawford. I know that sounds silly because Crawford's a 147 guy, but I still would like to see that super fight. But the obvious one right now is Munguia. Although, listening to Oscar De La Hoya, he seemed to kind of say it's either too late to make that fight or there's been no conversations, when Eddie kind of said there have been conversations. And Eddie, obviously, who will be working alongside Canelo, looks like he's already started to float the idea to Munguia. Munguia obviously wants that fight. I was at Munguia's fight with John Ryder, and I think Chris Mannix asked him the Canelo question and the crowd went mental. So it's a fight the crowd want. It's a fight Munguia wants. Oscar would love that fight. And I'm starting to think Canelo would want that fight as well, although in the past he has spoken about not fighting Mexicans. So that seems now to be the obvious one. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think Munguia has the tools to cause Canelo some problems. There is certainly no fear factor. He will go into that ring thinking that he can take Canelo's head off. He's very strong for the weight. I was going to say he's very big. I've been around him. I've been around much bigger super middles, but he's grown into the weight class. I think he looked really good against John Ryder, obviously working alongside Freddie Roach. Freddie's obviously implemented something that I think he didn't have before. He's not as, like before, he's very gun-ho. Like he's just, punches and bunches. Now he looks like he's setting his shots up now. So that comes with working alongside, again, someone as experienced as Freddie, but also comes with sort of getting his own experience as well, having been a guy that's been doing this a few years now. Munguia is 44-0 or something. But, I think more importantly, I think this does good numbers. I don't think it does Benavidez numbers. I don't think it does Terence Crawford numbers. And again, people will ask the question as to why he isn't fighting those guys, right? I mean, I 100% believe, I do. I 100% believe that an offer was put to Canelo to fight Benavidez. Like, surely. I mean, Al Heyman and the team, the mysterious Al Heyman, must have said, okay, Benavidez. They must have, right? And maybe even Crawford as well must have been floated. So I don't think it does that. I actually think a Canelo Crawford fight could have done $1 million because of the intrigue. Benavidez, maybe not as much, but Crawford, because of the intrigue, Crawford will sell that fight as well. I think we've seen a different side of Terence Crawford, but I think Munguia does 600,000 to 700,000, maybe more. It's a big Mexican showdown, this one. And I do think they've actually got two different fan bases, which might sound crazy, but I do think there are some Mexican fans that I don't think are drawn to Canelo. I don't know what it is. Maybe, when someone becomes really famous and, is a big superstar, like we do in this country, like to break him down a little bit. Maybe it's that. But Munguia certainly has a hardcore Mexican fan base. Again, I've done 3 Munguia fights and they've all done good numbers at the door. Again, we haven't seen a pay-per-view fight from Munguia yet, but in terms of just bums on seats, Munguia really ticks a lot of boxes. So yeah, it looks like it will be Munguia. The reason I say I don't think the door's shut with PBC is because, again, we've seen Canelo when he went and fought Caleb Plant. He went over there, then came back. He's very much in the DAZN Haney mode of one fight deal, and we'll go to wherever he thinks the best fight is, where the most money is. And that's what I think he's going to do. I don't know what this means for who he fights in September. Someone did float the idea of if Bivol beats Beterbiev, right, it could happen. I know Turkey Al Sheikh wants to see the winner fight Jao Petaya, but I think Bivol's undersized for that. If Bivol beats Beterbiev and becomes undisputed, so many ifs here. I mean, Bivol versus Canelo, potentially undisputed versus undisputed. It could happen in September, and that's a big fight. So look, that's what I think is going to happen. I actually will be shocked now if Canelo Munguia doesn't happen. I'd be shocked. I think the only stumbling block in this fight happening is Oscar. Oscar and Canelo, hatred's a strong word, so I wouldn't say hatred, but there is a big dislike there. A big dislike. And I mean, he's got to have conversations with Oscar, right? I mean, it can't just be Eddie Reynoso. I know Canelo likes to handle his business, and he'll have I don't know if he can sit down in a room and talk to Oscar. So that's the only stumbling block. But yeah, looks like we are going to get that one. If you're Eddie, you must be excited about the proposition or the prospect of working with Canelo again. Obviously, Canelo did a lot of good stuff for Eddie. I think Eddie mentioned it on that interview with Ariel Helwani, that it just opens up the Mexican market for Eddie when Eddie wants to do shows in Mexico and attract the young Mexican fighters as well, knowing that they've got the superstar that is Canelo on their books as well. What else is there to talk about right now? David Morrell says he would KO Berlanga. Yeah, this is what's going to happen now. It almost feels as though everyone in that 168 division knows they're not getting the Canelo fights. It's like, okay, let's just start fucking talking about fighting each other. And David Morrell versus Berlanga's a great fight. I think Morrell would win that. I think Morrell potentially could beat Benavidez. So I think Morrell could be the second best on paper, at least 168 pounder. So I don't disagree too much with what David Morrell's saying. Golovkin elected to Kazakhstan NOC presidency. I saw this photo. Like, blow it, Golovkin hasn't announced a retirement yet. I don't know what he's doing. Like, I want him to announce it because I want him to get his flowers. Like, when fighters just kind of disappear into sort of the abyss, you don't really give them their flowers. I want him to kind of say, guys, this is it. He's 41 now, Golovkin will be 42 in April. Like, if he's going to retire, he's not fought since Canelo. If he's going to retire, just retire so we can then start giving you your plaudits. I'd love to do a sit-down interview with Golovkin, one of my favorite fighters of this era. But yeah, we'll see. What else? Despite Garcia's objections, Haney loves New York fight venue. Well, look, there's a couple of reasons why this fight is happening there. And I think, number one, again, why not, right? I mean, there are a number of really good fight venues in America. Not everything always has to go to Vegas. Number two, though, if Canelo is fighting, May 5th in Vegas, you don't want to do your event in Vegas beforehand. I mean, you're just going to lose. You're going to lose. So, yeah, it makes sense to kind of just avoid Vegas in around any time that Canelo fights there. Like, unless you're fighting 2 or 3 months either side. If you're fighting 2 or 3 weeks, forget it. No one's traveling out to you because they're all saving up their money to get there for Canelo. It's true. If a boxing fan can only do one thing, like this fight in New York, you will get a few that travel in, but it will basically be the New York area. Whereas Canelo fights, whereas Vegas fights, you get people that fly into Vegas. They're not going to fly into Vegas for you and then either stay there or fly back home and then fly back again for Canelo. They're only going to do one trip, and that one trip will be for Canelo. So I actually think it makes a bit of sense. Hopefully I just made a bit of sense there as well, because I know I was going all over the place. Eddie Hearn on Gervonta Tank Davis. He doesn't even know what an upside on pay-per-view is. We didn't really talk about this. I don't know why, by the way. I don't really like the idea of Eddie messaging Gervonta. I just feel like it's a waste of time. Like every time Eddie messages these guys, and there's a history of it now, Broner did the same thing, they always expose him. And I almost feel like, Eddie, you're too big for this. You're too big for these young guys to be exposing you, saying, look at Eddie begging, or look at Eddie doing this. Eddie should go to his manager. I don't know if Eddie has any relationship with Al Heyman or an advisor in Ellaby. Go somewhere else. I know Eddie doesn't get on with Ellaby, but he's got to think of, okay, we need to maybe not go direct to Gervonta, because Gervonta will expose it. Eddie, we saw, I don't know if you guys have seen the text or the DM that Eddie sent him, but Eddie offered him, I think, $10 million, then an upside on pay-per-view, which obviously has been rejected because Gervonta's fighting Frank Martin. Gervonta was never going to fight Conor Benn. I think Eddie could have offered him 50. This is not me saying Eddie, that Gervonta's scared of Conor Benn. I just feel like it was never going to happen, like ever, no chance. So yeah, it was almost a wasted effort. But it's a lot of money. Like it's a lot of money. These guys obviously get paid a lot, the PBC guys, because 10 million and an upside on pay-per-view, you could have walked away with around 15 to 20 million to fight Conor Benn. And that's just been dismissed out of hand immediately, which does surprise me a little bit, but I don't know. These guys obviously getting a lot. He'll get a lot for fighting Frank Martin. It does seem as well, by the way, that this PBC Amazon thing seems to be only pay-per-view events. Do you remember, like, at the time, I think they only had like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, was it like 9 or 10 dates or something? And I think we already know that 3 or 4 of those dates will be pay-per-view. Benavidez, Vosdik's one, I think they're saying. Obviously, we've got this one with Furman and Tszyu, Tim Tszyu, and then obviously Gervonta Davis will be pay-per-view against Frank Martin. So it looks like it's only pay-per-view events at the moment, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In fact, I know it's a bad thing. Like, we need, like, I don't know. I think in order to grow it, and I know Amazon's got this massive reach, but in order to grow it, you need sort of just normal events. Like, what's going to happen with all the fighters that PBC have? They've got hundreds of fighters, thousands maybe. What's going to happen with them? Like, where are they going to fight? They all need a home, and surely they would have thought, okay, Amazon's a great home, but we need a date every single... Like, Amazon needs to be putting on fights every single week. They do, to satisfy these fighters, or these fighters are going to just become stale, fight once a year, and nothing happens. I'm talking of fighting once a year. We'll end on this one. Terence Crawford. Looks like his time is up as well with PBC and Al Heyman and Amazon, whatever, even though he didn't fight on Amazon. I think he had a 2-fight deal. Obviously, one of those fights was Errol Spence, and then he was awaiting the second fight, right? The rematch. That time is now done, so he is now unrestricted free agent. Doesn't mean he has left. He can sign, obviously, with PBC and fight whoever again, right? I mean, but you have to look at the Terence Crawford thing's interesting because there doesn't seem to be any juice whatsoever in Jermell Charlo. He's not going to fight Canelo. I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe if Tim Tszyu looks spectacular to the American audience, maybe there's a sell there for Tim Tszyu versus Terence Crawford. Boots Ennis doesn't seem to tickle him in any way, shape or form. So I have no idea what Terence Crawford does next. I hope he does something next because we haven't seen him in the ring for a while now and there has been no talk of a fight. So the next time we see him in a ring, he would have been out the ring again for over a year. It's just a shame. It's a shame. Massive Terence Crawford fan, but want to see you fight, mate. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford, I think, is 36. Looks in great shape, you know. Obviously lives the life, but 36 is 36, bruv. Yeah, he's 36. He is going to be 37 in September. Anyway, peace and love.